Welcome to DataViz Daily. I'm Kevin McGinley, and today we're going to have a little bit of fun playing with the dataset that I introduced yesterday, which is UFO sightings around the world for about the last roughly 100 years. And so what I've done is built a little story that I'm going to walk through. But before I do that, I just want to point out a few things that I've done, sort of building on yesterday's episode or the last episode. I've gone ahead and built a bunch of time-based columns off of this date timestamp here. So we've got year, quarter number, month number, day of the week number, day of the month number, day of the year number, hour of the day number, and we're going to tell a little story using a bunch of these columns. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and turn on this mode here, which will show a little blurb down here of the different insights that I've made. And to show a little bit better, we're going to go ahead and go into presentation mode. So as you can see here, I've embedded an image as the first slide. You don't always have to have just visualizations. You could also do text. And so, for any X-Files fans out there, I've gone ahead and picked the sort of tagline of the X-Files, "The truth is out there," so we can talk about UFO sightings. So my first step in the story here is to kind of show a trend line of the sort of span of UFO sightings over time. So our data goes back to 1906 here, where there was a sighting of one, and goes all the way up to 2014, which is actually an incomplete year. That's why it kind of dips off like this. So for the sake of argument, I'm going to actually skip 2014 and pretend like everything goes up to 2013 here. So going from a count of 1 to a count of 7,038. Now what I've gone ahead and done is actually broken this up over time a little bit. So what we've done here is take the period from when Roswell occurred, which was 1947. You can see here we've got a filter up here that takes us up through really sort of the kind of beginning of the U.S. space program. 1964 isn't exact from that regard, but it's pretty close. And what I've done is I've added in a constant here that shows us the 1946 value and how the period of time from Roswell up until sort of the beginning of the U.S. space program has really, sort of affected UFO sightings. So we did have a little bit of a dip here in 1948 after Roswell, actually a little bit lower than the prior year. So the year of Roswell, the rope count went to 37, then dipped back down to 8. But you see it's sort of, steadily progress over time up to a high of 88 in 1964. But then if we take the period of time from when the U.S. sort of landed on the moon in the mid-60s up through 69, all the way up to when the X-Files were introduced in 1993, you can see sort of a period of growth here. We go from a count of 188 all the way up to 309. We did have some peaks here, 335, 319 in the sort of mid-70s. Not sure culturally what that's attributed to and why it sort of started to fall off in the 80s. But ultimately, you can see here that we definitely greatly exceeded our value from 1964, over time. So then taking from when the X-Files was introduced all the way up to the present time, this is when the incredibly sharp growth has occurred. Now, whether this is attributed to the show and the fanaticism around the show or not is, I can't make that correlation just in this data set alone. But it's clear that from when the X-Files were introduced, the number of UFO sightings has increased dramatically. So we go from a number of 421 here in 1994 all the way up to over 7,000 in 2012 and 13. So a pretty incredible increase there year over year. So if we look then, how does this sort of break down in this most popular period, kind of keeping this filter up here from 1994 to 2013? We can see here that sightings definitely go up in the third quarter, July being the most popular month when this occurs, whether that's because it's summer and this is all northern hemisphere data, remains to be seen. Not sure what the definite correlation there is. And definitely the most sightings occur on the weekend, with Saturday being the highest day. What's interesting here is there is a definite sort of observation here where the 15th of the month and the 1st of the month definitely have the highest sightings by a significant margin. There are arguments to be made that there are peaks here on the 4th day, the 10th day, the 20th day. And what that sort of means, does it have anything to do with moon cycles or not? I'd have to get some other data to look at that. But, it's interesting. So remember the 1st, the 15th, July, and we'll take Saturday there. So as we look then, what about day of the year? Wow, very clear indication that the first day of the year and the 185th day of the year, very interesting, pretty huge spike, and that probably accounts for our spike in July as well, because the 185th day actually falls in that month. So as we then turn towards the sort of hour of the day, it's definitely clear that in the sort of 9 to 10 o'clock range, 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock range is when most of the sightings occur. So pretty much, always at night. So what do we do then if we want to actually take all those sort of popular values, hour of the day, day of the year, the month, and plot that out? We can see geographically where our data set, sort of pretty much resides. And there's definitely some concentrations here, along the western coast and in the central part of the United States. So how does that sort of, compare when we look at the different states, and their count of sightings, but also looking at, well, how long do those sightings occur? Where are the most popular ones? So we see states like Michigan, Missouri, Illinois, so those are the central states I was referring to. Then we've also got California and Washington. So that kind of makes up our West Coast, so not a surprise there. So if we then focus on those states, well, what are the types of sightings that people see the most? So kind of taking a tree map approach and looking at the ones that are, sort of both from a row count and a duration in seconds perspective, a light shape, fireball shape, circle shape, sphere shape, definitely those are the most common sightings in those areas at those most popular times of the year. So this is an example of how you can create a story using a data set in data visualization. This is just one story of many that you can tell depending on your data set, and obviously there are many also different ways to tell this story. I'll go in future episodes into kind of showing how I constructed this story, as well as what one can do to sort of tell the story a little bit differently. But for now, that's your story on UFO sightings around the world. Thanks for watching.